Hi, welcome back to another special edition of the Octopod. Again, here we are on video this time rather than just audio. And we're here for the third part of our series. And this time we're talking about sovereignty and how that's changing the conversation from an infrastructure and platform perspective, especially in the UK, but also across the EU as well. Again, happy to be joined by Darren from Nutanix. Darren, do you want to introduce yourself to everyone?
Sure, thanks Rob. Hi, I'm Darren Woolard, I'm Field CTO at Nutanix. Spent most of my time talking with lots of customers, our partners and distributors around all the challenges and things that they want you to achieve, whether it's a technology-related request or just trying to solve a business problem. So very happy to be invited here for another one of this episodes, and we're going to tackle what is actually quite an interesting kind of unknown topic in so many ways. So Rob, thanks very much indeed.
No, yeah, and I think, sovereignty has had, it's a conversation that's been around, but has become very prevalent over the last probably 12, 18 months.
Yeah.
But Darren, I guess let's start with, you speak to customers all the time, like I do, but where is it coming up in conversation and what are you hearing at a sort of high level to start, just set the scene?
Yeah, set the scene. I would say it's not a leading conversation at this time, but it now comes into conversations more. A bit like when I was having a conversation, people would say, "Oh, well, we must have security." It was something, or a carbon initiative. There's something there. Now it's the next thing on the table to talk about. I always find it's interesting that customers, not all of them, but often customers lead with, "It's about the data," and I think that's quite a telling sign, because we naturally always think about it's just the data. In our own personal lives, where's our data being stored, etc., etc. But for organisations, there's a bigger area there. So could you elaborate a bit more on the other areas? It's not just the data.
No, and I think data sovereignty is really key, because at the end of the day, that is what we're worried about from a leverage perspective. We'll talk a bit about why, etc. in a minute, but I think there's a couple of other areas as well. So I think there's an operational sovereignty challenge now. So who has access to the keys to the castle, who can interact with that data, who can demand access to it, who has access to it, etc., which is a bit different from where the data is stored. So who has access to consume and use and access and govern and manage that data. But that it's just in the operation, that isn't just data as well, it's the applications and the services and the platforms that sit around that. I think the third one that's coming up more and more, and especially when we're talking to security leaders, is supply chain sovereignty and security, and worrying about both that north and southbound supply chain. You mentioned it earlier about, cyber attacks happened, east-west attack. Oh, we didn't realise that supplier X had a leg in our network or an access to this, and that's where the vulnerability came in. So we're worrying about it from that side as well. And then I think, while not the topic for this conversation, the AI sovereignty conversation is now growing as part of that wider piece. And these are sort of four factors that are now influencing that sort of more architectural level choices. And I think if we're just thinking about it as data, to your point, I think actually we're not asking the right question from that side of it. So I don't know whether you've got a thought on that as well.
That's exactly it. There's the kind of the expectation. There's some tooling out there that you can maybe run a scan across the environment and it just says, "Oh, this is everything." And there is tooling to help with elements of that, but it's not one thing. It's the maturity model around the organisation, and unpicking much of those four areas you talked about. We're not going to touch on the AI, but unless you truly know what the entire environment that you have under your control, how can you really begin to get hold of that, especially third-party suppliers, the locations of much of your application and your data might be. Now from the Nutanix side, we have elements of that as part of our platform offering, but it's not one-stop solution for everything.
No.
We can show you that your applications or your Nutanix clusters are running wherever they might be in the world, and you can see that on a nice map, and you can apply some of the globally recognized compliance checks, PCI, HIPAA, all those sorts of things. But again, that's just a bit of tooling that's just addressing or just checking one element. That's not.
But it doesn't know whether that is in compliance to your organisational policy, your demands, your requirements, legislation, what region you're in, etc. And I think that's the that's the permission I think organisations need to give themselves, is that not everything has to be sovereign.
No.
Yeah, so this isn't you must move everything out of the public cloud because of the US Cloud Act and you're worried about subpoenaing your data.
Yeah.
It's not about everything has to be on-prem. It's not about everything has to be in a given region or in a tier 2 provider or whatever it happens to be. It's about where should the right data be.
Yes.
Same as workloads, to be fair. Should workloads run in the cloud? Should they run on-prem? The answer is depends on the workload.
Yeah.
Depends on the value to the business.
Yes.
Should data be contained in a sovereign environment or not?
Yeah.
Depends on the business.
Yeah.
Depends on what type of data it is and the impact it has on your organisation.
Yeah.
And I think giving yourself that freedom to be able to realise that it's not a binary on or off
Yeah.
choice, it is a sliding scale,
Yeah.
or maybe binary on or off for certain areas of the business versus others,
Yes.
and then understanding what you have to be able to map to what the requirements are,
Yeah.
allows you to then pick the right technology to solve the problem at the end of the day.
And yeah, absolutely picking the right technology. We talked in the previous episode about the time to most probably revisit architectures and, or instead of having everything just all on premises with one hypervisor vendor, actually have a distributed model for all the right reasons. The compliance and governance as part of the sovereignty also comes into this. So you can govern where your applications and your data are permitted to be deployed. We want organisations to be far more self-served.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't have to lean on IT to have applications or backups or whatever is made. It's not a request that goes into a ticketing system. There's this empowerment.
Yeah.
And with that comes elements of the governance. And then we've got the compliance from the regional side as well. All these conversations are intrinsically linked and should always be mapped out accordingly. Because the moment we just treat them as just individual tick boxes, maybe for some form of regulatory reason, or the board says, yes, we've done that, we've just striked that off the list of to-dos. I think it just opens organisations up for a world of more problems. And I know we're not going to talk about the impacts that AI is going to bring into this, but some organisations who are really manipulating data, and that's going to be going all over the place.
Yeah.
And there's
big challenges.
It's a big
potentially.
challenge, yeah, it really is. And it's not about the sheep worrying, it's just that we all live in such a digital presence world in our personal lives as well as in our business world. And we have to accept that with that comes rules. We can't just be playing with IT projects, science projects anymore. It's not what it is.
And I think the other problem with this conversation is a lot of people think, well, I'm not regulated, so therefore it doesn't apply to me. So maybe I'm not worried about the US Cloud Act, or I'm not part of a DORA or NIS2 regulated industry. But the reality is to your point, every business is now a digital business.
Yeah.
If you don't think you are, you are.
Yeah.
The big shipping company that went out of business early last year, 150 odd years in business,
Right.
cyber attack gone. And they admitted they didn't think they were that reliant on digital systems, and the cyber attack killed them.
Yes.
150 years of history gone in probably about 5 minutes.
Yeah, of course.
So everyone is a digital business, however much you want to accept it or not.
Yeah.
Therefore, the sorts of things that DORA, NIS and these compliance requirements are bringing in are actually there for a reason, because they're trying to protect critical national infrastructure.
Yeah.
But if you're a business, you might not be running a power plant or an airport or a train service, but I bet your business is just important to you as the train, the hospital, the nuclear power station is.
Yeah.
You certainly don't want to go out of business.
No.
Every business is only around for one thing, which is to make money, generally.
Yeah.
Being very general there, but 9.5 times out of 10 businesses in business to make profit. Let's not shy away from that decision. So going out of business is a bad thing.
Yeah.
And if you're not thinking about this from a business adaptability perspective, well, maybe it isn't a cyber attack that gets you. Maybe it's a regulatory thing and you go out of business because your reputation is damaged because you gave all your data away to the US.
Yeah.
Maybe it is that you get hit by a cyber attack. Maybe it is you get hit by some macroeconomic change and suddenly your single vendor strategy doesn't give you the flexibility to change.
Yes. Yeah.
So I think it's, while maybe not just about, like we said, data sovereignty, it's about how do I deal with the what if?
Yeah.
And what is that what if is the current strategy can't work anymore because it's commercially or politically or availability wise just not viable anymore.
Yeah.
How do you deal with that change?
Yeah, I think there's the element of what's happening in the real world when it comes to the elements of law and prosecution and fines. That's still finding its route. There's some clear things that companies make massive mistakes on, they get a huge fine. That's absolutely good. There's incredibly grey areas, and there's no. You hear about so many court cases over times on podcasts, whatever they might be, and they'll always find some reference to something that's steeped in history, that's referred to some big book in the 1940s. But at the minute, none of these books exist for everything that's happening today.
Today, yeah.
So organisations are maybe just too blasé about it. It won't happen to me, as you say, about people are just saying, well, we just use IT a little bit, but actually really most people are managed service providers in some form or another, whether they like it or not. And how they're going to find their feet when it comes to moving into the newer world, and all the controls that will go around that. I think that's still being made up at this moment in time, because the prosecutions aren't really happening, so no one's learning from anyone's mistakes, really. I think it's
there'll be a wake-up call when landslide cases happen, etc. from that side of it. So I think practically though, you touched on it before, you need to know what you have and where you are and all that. So you can't plan for the unknown without some foundation of data. So what data do you have, what systems do you have, what suppliers do you have, what compliance requirements do you have? That needs to be documented and it needs to be understood intrinsically. I think that's step one for anyone thinking about sovereignty. And then I think there's a very practical step of what does and does not need to fall within different constraints, different requirements, different legislations, etc., allowing you to make them choices around where to put systems. And then that might be then these systems are fine in Azure and AWS and GCP, and because the data in them, if it gets subpoenaed, then who cares? Because it's not intellectual property or customer data or whatever. But this information over here is actually the thing that differentiates our business, and maybe that needs to sit on a sovereign platform, and we want to make sure we've got that air-gapped capability, but we don't want to go to the dark ages. You know what I mean? I talked to a customer the other day and they said, on-prem, you mean fibre channel? You mean spreadsheets of WWPNs again? And I was like, no, nobody wants to go back to that world of managing fibre channel storage arrays, and because I did that nightmare. So then we're not saying that sovereign means that you have to go back to the dark ages, and I think that's where the partnership we have with you guys, and we run our managed service platform on Nutanix for this exact reason, is that we can build that cloud-like operating model in a sovereign and protected manner inside the UK borders, but we're not having to give up the simplicity at the same time.
Absolutely. It is all about going back to something mentioned on one of the other podcasts around design principles as well. So as organisations are moving forward rapidly with however they are building their business further to be more competitive, it needs the supporting framework around it. So we mentioned about knowing what you have, but it's also about when you're moving forward, what core principles are you following? Because they need to be defined. Otherwise, things are going to find themselves in the wrong places, and
we might make some great decisions and we end up back in the same mess. Our Escher from last time, you end up exactly the same place again in another 3 or 4 years from now. So
and taking the learnings from the market and the industry as it's happening, because all the things that are happening at this moment are valid inputs, small learnings to apply to your own organisation.
And I think that's the exciting thing about working with you guys and with us, etc., is that combined knowledge. You think about all the different customers we both speak to, both our organisations speak to, being able to bring that to a joint customer and say, these are the learnings, big and small, this is what we're seeing, and using that to help the customer make that right choice is the exciting part of the partnership a lot of the time. So
and that partnership, because it's global, we've got so many referenceable examples of how things, whether it's military, government, healthcare, whatever it might be, and that's the big want from organisations that approach us. Where have you done this before? How have you approached this? again, a lot of it in some ways is education. Nothing more than that. It's not a software tool.
No, you can't buy sovereignty.
No.
It's a process and a journey. So
exactly.
Brilliant. Thank you, Darren. It's been a great set of conversations. Hopefully everyone who's listening goes back and listens to episode 1 all around AI and futures, and episode 2 all around sort of operational basics and how to get the core challenges solved. But for this one, understand what you have, create them design principles as Darren said, and then map them back to what actually needs to be sovereign versus what doesn't need to be, and then make some really informed choices around what that future architecture is going to look like. So thank you for listening, and we'll see you in the next series.